Well, ballot counting is underway in the U.S. presidential elections. Results have started trickling in with a tight race between a Democrat candidate Kamala Harris as well as Republican hopeful Donald Trump. Journalist and author John Matisonn is following developments and now joins us. John, a very good morning to you. I wonder if you've managed to catch any sleep?
Yes, well, I got up early. I knew that we wouldn't get anything in our time last night, so I got a few hours.
You managed to squeeze in a few hours. Okay, so speak to us first of all before we speak about the politics around the elections and what we are seeing coming out so far. How does the vote counting happen in the US? I remember someone asking me about, so how come that we already see some results coming out, whereas in the South African situation, it would take over a day before we start really seeing those numbers?
Yeah, Aldrin, the thing to understand is I've been asked by many South Africans the last few days and weeks because it's very different from what people are used to here. There's no National Election Commission at all. It's all done state by state. And they are publishing their figures as they come out. So in that sense, it's like in South Africa. And what is happening is the networks and Associated Press have people in all the states, and they're doing their own assessments of the point at which they can be sure of the outcome state by state. Because as you know, it's an electoral college that votes in the end. And so where we are now is several states have announced enough official results that the networks are confident to say, well, that one is clearly going to go for Harris and that one's clearly going to go for Trump.
Yeah, and that is, of course, also depending on what the Electoral College committee members would finally decide on when they meet in December. Is that it?
No. This is decisive.
Yeah.
These votes are basically an instruction to the Electoral College electors. Trump tried to dispute that last time, if you remember. But the reality is, no, it's the votes that are being counted now will instruct the delegates state by state how they must vote.
Okay. And I was trying to explain it to someone, and I don't know if you'd agree with this explanation, and maybe it's a bit too simplistic. One of the political parties that we have followed a lot here in South Africa is the ANC with their elective conference. And what happens with the ANC's elective conference, you have what you call the branches, and the branches then delegate the people that will be representing the branches at the national conference. But the ANC itself, the mother body, would determine, based on the size of the branch, how many delegates get sent to the conference to make that final decision around, for instance, who will be voted in the next president of the ANC, as an example. Is that too simplistic?
No, it's very similar, except, of course, this is an official position. This is all done by laws, mostly decided, but, state by state, they have laws to cover all this. And that dictates how each state must implement the will of the voter. There are a couple of states where Nebraska and Maine, where they vote, they divide it. So in all the states but those two, if you get a majority, then all the delegates from your state, the electors from your state, must vote the way of the majority. But in those two exceptions, it goes actually congressional district by district. So in Nebraska, for instance, what usually happens is all but one of the electors will be Republican and one will be Democrat. So that's the exception. But in principle, it is as you say.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for that. Now let's look at some of the results that have come in, and I'm going to focus now on the Electoral College vote so far. 270, that is the threshold. Donald Trump, we understand, is now at 230. Kamala Harris is at 205. Are there any surprises for you that have come out of the preliminary results that are coming through?
No, but there is a surprise. Right now, I think in the next few hours, we'll have much more clarity about who's going to win. But right now, all we can say is that in the 7 battleground states that will decide the outcome, Trump seems to be performing better than people expected, and Harris just a shade worse, but a shade might be enough. So it's really, really right on a knife edge.
Yeah, California, no surprise there at all,
No,
considering
no.
the Electoral College votes that that the Democrats would be able to secure there.
Yes, California and New York are very big states. They send a lot of electors to the Electoral College, and they're both reliably Democratic. But the same applies to the Republicans for Texas and a few other states where they get a lot of votes. And those are all as expected, so there'll be no surprises there.
There'll be no surprises. Which are the other swing states or key states that we should be focusing on and to see whether or not they'll be able to swing the outcome of these elections? And again, also to stress once again to our viewers that, sure, you might get the popular vote, but the popular vote doesn't necessarily mean that you will have or will be declared the president of the United States or the next president of the United States.
That's right. The Democrats usually win the popular vote, but sometimes they win the popular vote and still lose the Electoral College, which is how Trump got elected in 2016. So the most important battleground state to indicate the way it's going is really Pennsylvania. And it looks like we might have an answer quite soon. And the other one that we should have clarity on quite soon is Georgia. So those are two of the 7 battleground states, but Georgia will give you an early indication. And Pennsylvania, if Pennsylvania goes to Trump, that's a big deal. That's a real warning sign for Harris. If Harris wins in Pennsylvania, she's got a good shot. And the reason is because Pennsylvania has the most Electoral College votes of the battleground states. It has 19.
Yeah, and then the other part around elections, of course, is accepting and conceding defeat. I see that the BBC is reporting, for instance, that there are more than 100 pre-election lawsuits already been filed, mostly by Republicans. And now there's also this accusation that has come out of the Trump camp that there is electoral fraud that is taking place. What's your take on how the US will be able to deal with these particular questions, including the credibility of these elections?
Well, look, going by last time, Trump brought 60 cases. He pretty much lost them all. He won one on some technical point, but he lost them all. So the 100 cases, for Trump is a marketing man. So for him, this is all theater. He's raising all these concerns, but the courts will look at the evidence, and if there's real evidence, they'll take account of it. In most cases, if there's no evidence, they'll dismiss it. And judging by last time, that's what I would expect.
Yeah, that's the one part around it, which some people would argue does come across as quite dismissive. However, though, the Trump supporter would look at this a different way, as we saw what happened in 2021. On January the 6th, and some people wondering whether that could be another possibility at all in the United States.
Yes, of course, there's no doubt. If Trump wins, I guarantee you he'll drop all his lawsuits. If he loses, he will go through the courts, and of course he'll be making inflammatory statements. I mean, we have such a long record of him doing that, and you can expect his supporters to be very angry. He'll tell them you were cheated, and many of them will believe him. And you can expect maybe certainly big demonstrations, maybe a bit of violence. But if Harris wins clearly in the Electoral College, in the elections that are the votes that are being counted now, I think it's all manageable. Remember also that Biden is the president this time, not Harris, and so I think all of that is manageable. And if Trump wins, I think the Biden and Harris as vice president will certify the results according to the vote count, and Trump will be president.
Yeah. Finally, John, quickly, what would you say are the key issues is that as South African viewers who are watching these elections we should be looking out for?
Yeah, well, look, as South Africans, I think the general issue is that Harris, like Biden, is more sympathetic to South Africa. She's not going to look for a reason to punish us. She may not like what South Africa did in the International Court of Justice regarding Israel, but she's not likely to punish us. Trump, on the other hand, I don't think he comes in with a plan for South Africa. I don't think he's giving South Africa any thought. But if something happens during his presidency, that South Africa does something, like the ICJ case, he could well be vindictive towards South Africa. So that's the concern. I don't think it's an immediate problem the day after, but as things arises, he will be much less sympathetic to South Africa if anything arises that irritates him.
Well, thank you so much for that, John, and also considering that you have Joe Biden's visit to Africa, to Angola, actually, that'll be taking place next week. Thank you. Appreciate your time.